Welcome everybody to Cartridge Talks, where my good friend Ryan Muckenhern and I are comparing the cartridge evolutionary equivalent of modern man, the 6.5 Creedmoor, to the 1963 introduced 300 Winchester Magnum, which I guess would be Crow Magnum?
Ouch. Now, before we get into the weeds here, we should establish a couple of baselines. Because we're shooting two remarkably different rifles, and when we're trying to calculate things like recoil energy in foot-pounds, we're going to start with a base-weighted rifle of 8 pounds. We're also going to use the factory box-posted ballistics for running our tabulations for drop and drift and coming up with things like that recoil energy. And we're going to be shooting into a product called Permagel, which is a ballistics gelatin, and while an imperfect medium, it's a very consistent medium. We'll be shooting at 100 yards. We're gonna have some fun with this.
You mentioned rifle variants, so we might as well talk about the hardware we're gonna be working with today. Ryan, I have your Tikka T3 6.5 Creedmoor in an AG composite stock with a proof research barrel, topped with the Vortex Razor HD LHT 3-15x42.
I am also going to be shooting a Tikka, no surprise there. This is one of our range guns. This one a T3 TAC X, chambered in 300 Win Mag. I've got a Strike Eagle 5-25 on it, and it has a suppressor.
Now that we have the formalities out of the way, let's head to the range and shoot some gel. All right, back at it with the cartridge everybody loves, and a lot of people love to hate, the 6.5 Creedmoor. Up first, we've got the 140 grain Power Shock. Let's send one down range and see how it does. Okay, down range at the block. Let's see how she did. All right, not bad. 21 3/8 inches of penetration. Pretty solid for a cup and core.
And we're on the bench with the mighty 300 Win Mag. We're gonna be shooting the 180 grain Federal Power Shock, a cup and core bullet. Let's send one down the tube and see what shakes out. All right, we're at the block here with 27 3/8 inches of penetration, which for a cup and core bullet is pretty devastating.
All right, switching it up with the Federal Premium, pushing a 130 grain Barnes triple shock. Gonna press that trigger and see what happens. All right, if history repeats itself, we should see quite a bit more penetration here. Oh yeah, history has repeated itself. We're looking at 34.5 inches of penetration. Super impressive. Always want to consider that this is at 100 yards, but I like what I see.
We're back on the bench with the Tikka chambered in 300 Winchester Magnum. Switching gears a little bit here. Federal's Trophy Copper 180 grain. Let's send one into the block.
Good hit.
All right, 32 3/4 inches of penetration through the gelatin. Big wound channel, deep wound channel. This copper is no joke.
And we're back! And we're back to talk about shootability, Ryan, which the 6.5 Creedmoor might as well be the poster child. I mean, this is the gun that's fun for the whole family. It's easy shooting and packs enough wallop on target to get the job done nearly every time. And when we're talking about shootability, we can't do it without talking about foot-pounds of energy generated. We're looking at 13.8 with the 6.5 Creed. You're looking at 31.96 with the 300 Win Mag. That's a lot of recoil.
It's more.
It's a lot more than double. I mean, you can't even argue the numbers. I'm not gonna say everything is numbers, but you can't argue the numbers here. This thing's gonna beat you up compared to the 6.5 Creed.
You are correct, and it does, and it does.
So the winner is?
I guess I'll tip my hat to the Creedmoor.
I thought I could make you say it.
Well,
Winner. Since the 6.5 Creed flat pounded you in the shootability category, let's talk accessibility.
well, Mark, you're right. You can't have a toy without batteries, so accessibility. We polled the big 6 ammunition manufacturers. That's Remington, Federal, Nosler, Barnes, Winchester, and Hornady. Looking at all available factory options, how many different loaded options could we get from each? Well, in the 6.5 Creedmoor, where you flat pounded me on shootability, 56. Not bad. 300 Win Mag, 61.
61 is more than 56, but it doesn't really matter if you don't want to shoot the damn thing.
You know, Mark, I don't think that matters because all we're doing right now is we're trying to find out how many bullets can we buy from it. And 61 is more than 56. Bullet weight ranges go from, in the 6.5 Creedmoor, 80 to 147. We're starting very light, we're getting kind of moderate. 300 Win Mag, 150 grains is our starting point, 215 is our stopping point. That's more better.
Fair enough. When it comes to accessibility, the 300 Win takes the cake.
I agree. Points. 300 Win. All right, Boardman, you might have had me on shootability. I definitely had you on accessibility. Let's talk about versatility. What does one do that the other cannot, or vice versa?
I tell you what, Ryan, if you want to talk versatility, the 6.5 Creed is the definition of. You can target shoot, you can long range precision shoot, you're gonna shoot matches, you can hunt with the darn thing. It does a lot of things. And when you're gonna talk about the variety of bullets, you're talking match profile bullets, varmint bullets, cup and core bullets, all copper bullets. A lot of types of bullets. And speaking of a lot of types of bullets, we're talking 36 offerings versus 34 with your 300 Win Mag.
A narrow margin, Mark. A narrow margin.
But a margin at that. 6.5 Creed wins in this category.
I'll give it to him.
Ryan, the 6.5 Creedmoor was born in the long-range precision shooting world. So I guess it's time we talk drop and drift.
Drop and drift indeed, my dear friend Mark. Now, we're going to enlist the help of our dear friend Luke and his very sexy graphic to help make this palatable information. Again, we tabulated this with the box posted figures. Getting right down to the meat and the potatoes, at the 500-yard line, the 6.5 Creedmoor is requiring 10.58 MOA of vertical correction in order to make an impact, and in a 10-mile-an-hour full value, so 90 degrees perpendicular to the bullet's path, 3.91 MOA to make an impact.
Pretty efficient.
Not quite as efficient as the old 300 Win Mag. So firing again that Federal Power Shock ammunition, we shaved nearly 2 MOA off the vertical correction. 8.84 MOA is the requirement to make impact on target, and in that full value wind, it's a little bit closer, 3.5 MOA to make impact on target. 300 Win.
So you're telling me that a cartridge that was designed specifically for long-range precision is getting beat out by the 300 Win Mag?
It's a 300 Win Mag.
Darn it.
Points. 300 Win Mag.
Thus far, my good sir, a lot of talk, not a lot of action. So let's talk terminal ballistics and take a peek at the gel.
Jello shots.
Bam. Ryan, we have before us the Peace Day Resistance. We have the gel blocks with the bullets captured. On my side, we have the 6.5 Creedmoor pushing the 140 grain power shock. On your side, the 180 grain power shocks from the 300 Win Mag. I have to say, after looking at both, I'm a little bit jelly. You've got more penetration. I have good penetration at 21 3/8 inches, but you have more at 27 3/8.
Mark, it's just enough to add another notch to the 300 Win Mag here. Yes, it is more penetration. We shouldn't discredit the 6.5 Creedmoor though, because that is absolutely adequate for hunting scenarios, right? That bullet, I think, did exactly what it was supposed to do. Something to keep in mind if you're going to be shooting heavier skinned game, something with large bone, muscle tissue. Penetration does a lot for you. And a cartridge like this, pushing a bullet with this kind of mass and putting these numbers up, could be the deal breaker.
You can skin this cat a couple different ways, right? Like you said, this is more than adequate. It's doing a great job. I think the composition of the ballistics gel may not completely emulate that of a deer or deer-sized game.
True.
That said, you get more.
They're both doing their job, I think, very well. We're getting characteristic performance out of it. These bullets look like they do in the picture books when you see them in that traditional mushroomed fashion. Both of these bullets pulled it off. The 300 Win Mag just came with a little bit more.
Well, Ryan. The tables have turned. You sprinkle a little copper on things and we get quite a different picture. This is the 6.5 Creed pushing a 130 grain Barnes TSX. You've got the 180 grain Trophy Copper. I got more penetration this time. What's going on there?
I think because you have a smaller frontal section on that projectile, you were able to slip in that last bit of 2 inches there and just nudge me out, Mark.
I mean, I've got considerable penetration compared to what I had with the traditional cup and core. You have more penetration, but less different.
I mean, it's still substantial. Let's not try to undersell the 300 Win Mag, but this is pretty characteristic for copper projectiles, and this is why I personally have grown to love them. I don't know if you know that about me.
Yeah, I do know that. You say it all the time.
I do love an all copper projectile. And I think the biggest thing, and both projectiles are exemplifying this, is we have massive penetration, nearly 100% weight retention of the projectile. The only secondary fragments that we're getting on this particular option here is that plastic nose cone. And with the Barnes option over there, there was no nose cone in the first place. That bullet is effectively entirely intact, expanded as we would expect. It looks like a picture in a magazine, but huge wound channels, wild penetration. This is exactly why I love these bullets when they're kept within the confines of their, operational parameters.
I will say that the performance is impressive, but I will caveat with we're looking at a single variable here. We're looking at penetration at 100 yards, right? That's going to change as you extrapolate that throughout distance, and it's not telling the entire story of energy on target either, which your 300 is going to take the cake big time there. At the end of the day, you could say with the cup and cores, the 300 wins.
Definitively.
With the coppers, based on penetration alone, the 6.5 wins. But I know through personal experience that the 300 wins this contest. There's more variables at play here.
Indeed there is. And I think if we were looking at terminal performance holistically, you're absolutely correct. The 300 Win Mag is not called 300 Lose Mag. It's called 300 Win for a reason. Points, definitively, 300 Win Mag.
Flawless victory.
It wins.
It does. Both of these are outstanding medium and large game cartridges. That's an undeniable fact. And specifically looking at the 6.5 Creedmoor, which is a darling child for the long-range shooting enthusiast and medium game hunter alike, it is a cartridge that you can shoot well and often without beating up you or your wallet. The round that you'll fire often, you'll become more ethical and effective with. That's a really compelling case for a big game cartridge. If it was going to fall anywhere, I would say it would be delivering terminal payload on target at distance. And when we're looking at large cervids or large carnivores, the 300 Win Mag is just going to take it away from that 6.5 Creedmoor. It's going to remain king of this hill anyway.
So if you enjoyed Ryan and I's little chat, or some might say little spat on this topic, tune into the Vortex Nation podcast where we dive deeper into the gel, extracting the bullets, weighing the bullets, and talking about it even more.